Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of RetroActive. I am Joey. I'm joined by my co-host Will.
Hey guys.
Hey Will, I have a question for you.
What do you have to ask me, Joey?
Do you like Mega Man?
I love Mega Man. Mega Man is awesome.
Do you like Mega Man X?
Mega Man X is even better.
Do you like a spiritual successor to Mega Man X?
That would be really cool, actually. Yeah.
Well, you're not getting one.
Oh, you got my hopes up and then you dashed them quite rapidly. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, if in case you haven't heard yet, they actually did try to release a Mega Man X spiritual successor recently.
That is
last
correct.
week, actually. Mighty No.9, as some people might have heard about already, is it was supposed to be the next big like Mega Man kind of game.
Yep. Finally came out after how many years of development time?
Yeah, so the game, the quick history of the game, it was started up as a Kickstarter campaign back in, what year was that?
2013.
2013.
Yeah.
Wow. 2013. I backed it. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the first things I ever, maybe one of the first things I
Oh,
ever
one of your
backed.
first Kickstarter projects that you ever backed? All right.
Sadly enough, I thought it would be a good idea. And
a lot of people did,
yeah,
apparently.
70,000 people thought it was going to be a good game.
Yeah.
I kind of backed it and just forgotten about it. They've kept sending me emails and I just ignore them.
Yeah.
I didn't respond to any of them, so I don't know if I'm even getting a copy of it or not.
Right, like you didn't actually fill out a survey or anything
I don't
to get a
know,
code.
and I honestly don't care.
Yeah, well, you played it through work anyway, right? So
Yeah.
you at least got to play it. But yeah, it's the original Kickstarter back in 2013, like it had an initial goal, I think, of 900,000, which is pretty small for a lot of Kickstarter games nowadays, especially one that had like as big of a name as this one did. Like the whole
Who's in it?
Keiji Inafune. He was I believe the creator of Mega Man.
He was a creator of Mega Man. So
Yeah.
they got the creator of Mega Man. Not necessarily like, a game that's like Mega Man or just a guy who worked in games before. No, the creator of the original Mega Man.
Yeah.
To come on as like a producer or director of the game.
Oh, I think it's like he's the one who started the company, the development company that made the game. So I went back and I actually watched the video that they had, like the original Kickstarter video. And honestly, it's like after watching that video, I would have backed that project too. Because honestly, it's a very poignant look. Like it's all from Inafune's perspective too.
Yeah.
And he's basically talking about how, he couldn't. Like Capcom had canceled his previous projects that he was working on. Like at the time, they were working on like some kind of like a Mega Man, like kind of like Mario Maker, but for Mega Man. Like they were working on it was like a make your own like Mega Man kind of game.
Yeah,
where you would make your own levels and everything and play through like as the original Mega Man.
Yeah, and I remember they released Mega Man 10, right?
Yeah,
as like the new Mega Man for
they did like
3 or something like
8,
that.
9, and 10 on the PSN and everything. But they were also working on Mega Man Legends 3 apparently, like a third Mega Man Legends game, and probably some other Mega Man games. But I think they canceled all of them. And Inafune, I think either he had left the company by then or he left it probably right after. And he was like, in the video he's like, I couldn't make the kind of projects that I wanted to when I was working for Capcom. So I went out and I created my own studio. And I want to continue to make like games that I want to make, but also games that I know that you as players want to play. And so it's a really good video about like him wanting to continue to make the games the same way. And even though he cannot use the license, which he never mentions by name, but it's Mega Man.
It's a smart thing to do.
Yeah, it's like he never mentions it, but he says like, I might not have the properties that I used that I helped to create, but I want to make something in the spirit of this game series,
Of whatever game that series was,
that you all know and love.
Yeah, and that video was on their Kickstarter front page, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
And so when people saw it, they thought this is going to be good. This is
Exactly.
gonna be huge. You got the creator of Mega Man and thousands upon thousands of people who want to back it, who believed in it. Like, how could it have gone wrong?
Yeah.
How could it have gone wrong?
I mean,
Will.
I don't know, man, because like going back and looking at the original Kickstarter page, you could see all of the original concept art. They had 2D mock-ups of like what the gameplay would look like. And the funny thing is, if you compare that to how the game looks now that it's been released here like 3 years later, the 2D mock-ups look way better than the game does.
Okay, yeah. That's no surprise there. Only because when a game goes kind of the route that it went in terms of graphical style, you lose so much of that personality that was present in 2D like animation and like character design.
Definitely. I mean, if you look at you fast forward to now, you look at the results that the game has gotten. The game's been out for about a week now.
Yeah.
And it's been received very in a very much like a negative to mediocre light. Like it is not. I have not read a single positive review of this game thus far. And I mean, a lot of people point out, the lifelessness of its art and the cutscenes, especially. I know you hated the cutscenes. Oh my god.
Yeah. So I played it for maybe about 3 or 4 hours at work, and I was going through I think only 4 of the stages, but in each one, the voice acting is just absolutely terrible. Like. In all the cutscenes, none of their mouths move.
Oh.
Which is, okay, yeah, that's fine. I'll give that to them. That saves money there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the voice acting is just so overly done. It's pretty much like a really bad anime dub.
Oh, okay.
If you want to compare it to anything, that's what it's like.
Yeah.
And even the facial reactions, they could have at least made them different. They could have made it different depending on what they were even saying in the scene. Like there's a scene really early on where Mighty No.9 is kind of hesitant about going on the mission or whatever. He's kind of scared, but his face is just angry the entire time.
It doesn't change to suit the dialogue.
Basically, in the cutscenes, nothing ever changes. Like they might move a little bit, but they are basically like, I don't know, little toys that you just place there. They don't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, it almost feels like that's like a really lazy design choice, because I mean, if you're gonna make them stand there and like add in all these moving animations, like they're breathing and they're just kind of standing there, you might as well at least go the extra mile and like animate some facial expressions,
possibly,
or you don't have to make them talk. You don't have to lip sync it to the dialogue, but at the very least, like give it some life,
Yeah.
And I mean, other frustrations.
More complaints?
Yeah, other complaints that I've heard.
It's a very beautiful PS2 game.
PS2
I'll tell you that.
That's been released on the PS4 and the Xbox One and the Wii U.
And 12 other platforms or whatever.
Yeah, I think that was... I was reading like Inafune's reaction to some of the criticism of the game, and I think that was one of the things he pointed to was like, we decided to release this game on 10 different platforms, and that was probably a big mistake. Which, granted, it probably was a huge mistake. It
really sounds like it.
They really should have like focused on doing this for, either just doing it on like one platform and have it ported over to like, the consoles and that's it, or just saying, all right, we're only going to do this on Steam. Yeah. And then like if you want a copy of the game, get it on Steam.
Yeah, something like Shovel Knight. That's exactly what it did. It started on the Wii U and 3DS, nothing else.
Right.
Only Nintendo systems. Everyone thought it was going to do poorly because nobody has a Wii U.
Exactly.
How can anyone play it or want to buy it because of that? No, it was a smashing success, and now it's on PS4 and Xbox One.
Exactly. They ported it after the success of it, which was the smart way of going the smart route of doing it too. Because at least you're making money off the original release, and you could spend that money to port it over and and build your audience even bigger and get more money from the game. Yeah. It reminds me of also like that game Terraria that I was really into like a couple of years back. That started out as a game that was only on Steam too, and now you can buy it on pretty much any system.
Yeah, it's on a lot of platforms.
Yeah, it's on a ton of platforms, and it's still really expensive. Like it's $15. Like man, I got that for like $4 on Steam. And I think it's way better on the PC too, but anyway.
Okay. Before we stop shitting on Mighty No.9, let's shit on it one more time.
One more time?
Because we have a lot more to talk about.
Okay.
But I think one of the most telling things during this game's release was the trailer that they sent out maybe like a month before.
Yeah. It was back in, I think, May they released this trailer?
Like the end of May.
Right.
And everyone saw it, and it kind of set a precedent for what, I guess, the amount of effort. I don't even know how to describe it. Here, I'm just going to play it, and all you need to hear is the audio. Here you go.
Hey, you, looking at the screen. Let me ask you a question. Do you like awesome things that are awesome? Then you gotta play this game, dude. It's friggin' cool and crazy addictive, like popping bubble wrap addictive. Check this out. See, that's your dash move. There's a short dash, a long dash, jump dash, spiral, slide. There's probably a dash that makes you breakfast. I don't know.
Great idea. Wait, what?
Point is, you're dashing around like a friggin' moon man, and I love it. Oh, and look at this. There's all these combo moves you can do. Then you can do combos on combos to rack up your score. And I know you like that combo on combo action. But I saved the best for last. Absorption boost. You kill an enemy, and you can absorb their power-ups. Stuff that'll make you faster and stronger, and make the bad guys cry like an anime fan on prom night. So what do you think? You ready to play? I'm ready. No one's talking to you, Vernon. Mighty No.9.
Like an anime nerd on prom night.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck were they thinking with this?
Yeah.
It's
just super uninspired, I feel like.
It's almost as if they are... Well, no, it's not almost as if. It's as if they have no idea what their target audience actually likes.
Exactly.
Like they
oh
feel
my
that
God.
this is what they like to hear from like a commercial.
Yeah.
Like,
You know what's really funny to me, actually, when I first saw this trailer, you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of, like, the advertisements you would see for games in all the video game magazines back in the 90s. Like when we were looking through all those issues of Game Fan and EGM and stuff like that for the E3 coverage.
Exactly. A lot of those were just kind of in your face, kind of like, oh, I'm blatantly trying to be this overly cool kind of person.
Like they're trying so hard to be like hip and edgy and have all this attitude that we apparently had in the 90s.
Yeah, and when you did it then, it was fine because that's how everyone was. Everyone kind of understood that's what we wanted. Maybe.
Exactly.
But nowadays, when you do that without even a little hint of like tongue-in-cheek humor, it just comes off as offensive.
Yeah, which it's funny because I was asking myself after I heard that, it's like, have we just grown a little too soft and sensitive to this type of marketing, or or maybe have we outgrown that kind of thing?
No, it's terrible. It has this trailer has over 1 million views. Judging by the looks of the thumbs up and thumbs down, it has roughly about 95% thumbs down.
Yeah, I would imagine.
So it's not just us; it's everyone.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, too, it's like when you compare that to the original Kickstarter video that Inafune put out,
Yeah.
And it's like the message is incredibly different. It's so different. Like Inafune, at least, is when he's explaining the kind of game he wants to make, he's very heartfelt and genuine, and he's very much about like, I want to make this game for you, for the player. Whereas the guy narrating this
it's like
trailer,
a joke now.
Yeah, he's basically like, hey, you should play this game because it's so cool. Like, all right.
Like what happened to that heartfelt message about wanting to make this, like the game that he's always wanted to make?
Yeah.
Like, is this what he wanted?
I somehow don't think so. I think this is a matter of like the publisher, like the company that was publishing this game, going out and marketing it the completely wrong way.
Yeah.
And trying to add in all this like edge and stuff to it that it really doesn't need. It really doesn't need that. And yeah, I mean, aside from like the ad campaign, like all the delays to the game too really just kind of killed the momentum that this game would have had. I mean, originally I think this game was supposed to come out in oh my God, when was this supposed to come
2014,
out? Yeah.
like 2015 even.
Yeah, like it was
Not
supposed
all the way in 2016. They did not have that on their radar.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like they I think they delayed it like twice, and after a while there was like no news at all between like January of this year up until the trailer came out in May. And then they finally announced the release date. Like, oh, it's coming out next month. Cool. Like, all right. And by then too, either A, you had forgotten about the game like you did.
Yeah.
B, you probably didn't care about it anymore anyway. Or C, you saw this trailer and you were like, what the fuck, man? Like, now I just don't really want to play this because this looks bad.
It just looks like what is this Mega Man clone that they're
Yeah.
trying to do? They had people thinking that had no idea that this was a passion project of the original Mega Man creator.
Yeah, you would never have guessed it looking at it now. And the funny thing is, yeah, like in terms of like, yeah, talking about momentum, it's like you said, you had forgotten about it up until now. It's like you hadn't even bothered replying to the Kickstarter, but you played it. You got to play it at least because you know, you
I had to
for work. Whereas my girlfriend Joss, you know, she backed the Kickstarter to the point where she got like the physical rewards. She got like a couple of T-shirts. She got a little stuffy in the mail.
That sounds a
And
lot more awesome than playing the game.
I'm sure it is. And when we finally downloaded it on the PS4 the other night, she was like, I'll play it later. I don't really care about it right now. I don't even know. She probably still hasn't played it yet. So, and
Yeah.
I didn't even get around to playing because at the time I'm like, I'll do it later.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least you got the rewards, which is nice.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like that might be the only good thing to come out of some Kickstarters.
Right. Is like the extra stuff
Yeah,
you
the
get
extra
from
stuff.
it.
So let's kind of stop shitting on my number 9 for just a little bit.
Yeah.
like I said.
Just for a bit.
So let's talk about Kickstarters in particular
Yeah.
and how I feel that they can be both a blessing and a curse. Especially a curse when you have an end product that is held to so much like a much higher standard than if
Right.
the creators released it on their own terms. With Mighty Number 9, they got, I think it was close to $4 million or over $4 million in order to make this.
3.8.
Wow. Okay, yeah, I'm not sure if that's also the highest amount that has ever
I
been.
don't think so. I
Maybe
think,
at the time it was.
yeah, at the time it might have been, but I think there have been projects that have gotten upwards to like $6 million
Yeah.
from crowdfunding.
But I mean, 4 million is nothing to sneeze at.
No.
But I will say that even though they had all of this money, when you have a Kickstarter as big as this, you kind of have this expectation that comes along with it. Now that you've started the Kickstarter, you also now have your end date of when you're supposed to release stuff and when you're supposed to send backer rewards out.
Right.
Like all these things to fulfill, and it becomes almost like a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
And if they feel they're not ready yet, they'll have to delay it or less release an unfinished product, and then by delaying you kind of disappoint everyone else and everyone that was waiting for it in the process.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of handcuff yourself to the date,
Yeah.
to the projected date that you already set before you've even started developing the game.
Yeah, and then if it's like it's either you hit it or it's a failure or
Yeah.
there's something wrong with it, you know? Like with yeah, you get all this money, but with it comes all this added stress and expectations for
Yeah.
your project.
It might even be worse than like developing the game under a publisher who, you know, they might give you a rough estimate of like, all right, well, you know, we're gonna let you work on this game for like, you know, like we'll give you like 2 years or so as a time
Yeah.
frame. But then, you know, if there a lot of times they don't even reveal it to the press or reveal it to the public until it's already like half
Yeah,
done.
they just work on it.
Yeah,
because
until you
that's
have
what they
something to
need
show.
do.
Whereas like with Kickstarter, most of the time it's like, you know, you're asking for money before you've even started developing the game, like while you're still conceptualizing it,
Yeah,
which is
and-
what happened with Mighty Number 9.
And as you go on, remember, you have to continue to prove that, oh, this game still is being made, by the way.
Yeah,
By
exactly.
sending people updates. And that, it just added stress, I think.
Yeah, and there are a lot of times where, you know, the developers, they disappear with that money. I've seen a lot
Oh,
of
yeah,
horror
yeah,
stories
yeah.
where, you know, the developers, they stop updating the Kickstarter, they get rid of their website, and all of a sudden it's just like, hey, you know that $2 million that they got from all the people that, you know, the money that they get right when the Kickstarter ends, it's all gone.
It's gone.
It's all gone. Sorry, guys. And Kickstarter is not responsible for that. And even though the developer is technically responsible for that, there's no repercussion for it.
Yeah, there's no guarantee that anyone will ever get their money back.
Yeah, Kickstarter in that sense is almost like a gamble in a way because
Yeah.
you don't really know what you're going to get out of it, especially with video games. Video games have such a lengthy development time, especially for smaller independent developers. Like even a game like Mighty Number 9, that's like people say it's a game that you could beat in like 2 or 3 hours, for like the main campaign. It still had a development cycle of like almost about 3 years now from start to finish.
And even after it's done, it still feels unfinished. It doesn't feel like a complete game.
Right.
And I think with them, since it was delayed so many times, it seems like in the end they kept delaying it until someone was just like, fuck it, release it.
Yeah.
We need to
Yeah.
get it out to people. Like I feel like that's literally what happened. They knew it was not finished. They knew it was unpolished, but they were like, put it out anyway.
Yeah.
Whatever.
You get that sense from the lack of updates between January up to
Yeah.
pretty much now, that like most of that hype was gone. So
Yeah,
you figure
someone in the company just took charge and was like, okay,
just get it out of the
do it.
door, push it out. That's not to say that every Kickstarter game winds up going those kinds of routes.
Oh,
I mean,
no.
yeah,
Definitely not. There have been plenty of good games that have come out from there.
yeah, for sure. Or like plenty of games that that look amazing that are going to come out soon.
Like, oh, is that for me?
That
Okay.
was for you because I know
guess-
you had one you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, just one real quick. Ukulele,
Ukulele.
which is, a newly funded Kickstarter game by the guys who made the Banjo-Kazooie series.
Right.
Basically, kind of like expats from Rare.
Mm-hmm.
They the ones that worked on the game. They left the company. They created their own studio called Playtonic, and they've been wanting to make this game for a really long time. Like they wanted to make a new Banjo-Kazooie kind of, adventure platformer game, and
Yeah. It
They-
looks really good.
I know they started the campaign. Was it last year? I think.
Uh-huh.
And it was supposed to be released this year, at the end of this year, but they pushed it back, which,
Of course.
it's delays or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, I don't see a lot of people actually getting upset at that.
Yeah.
And it probably is because the game looks good to begin with.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
They've shown off a lot of gameplay and a lot of footage of the game in action, and the level of polish compared to something like Mighty Number 9 is just unprecedented for a Kickstarter game, I think.
Yeah. And that's exactly, I think, the reason why people are not so angry about the delays like they were with Mighty Number 9.
Yeah.
Is they had something to show for it. They have you could see the work that they put in. You could see where those dollars have gone to.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a game that's was made for half the amount of money that
Yeah,
it
there's a
actually
bunch
made.
of holes in it somewhere.
Yeah. And just like we were talking about with that pirate game that you were playing at E3.
Yeah.
There's a certain level of expectation there too with these guys being from Rare, That's a very big pedigree, much in the same way that we figured if Keiji Inafune is working on Mighty Number 9, it's going to be good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel like there are a lot of Kickstarters that actively try to promote that sort of thing. Like they're either being developed, or they're either okay.
They're either being developed. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Being developed by the original creator of the game they want to have it be a spiritual successor of.
Right, or a sequel to.
Yeah, or they have it in some cases as a backer reward. Like if we make $500,000 on this, we'll bring in this composer or this guy to do the art. Or
Right.
we'll make another character based off of this guy. And
Yeah.
it's good incentive, I think, but sometimes can lead to a lot of disappointment.
Right, or even like higher expectations than you normally would have for a game like that.
Yeah.
There's a Kickstarter that I was taking a look at that was backed. I remember it being backed a couple of years ago. It made the funding, and I think that they're still developing it. It was this game called Unsung Story: Tale of the Guardians, which is probably one of the most generic RPG names ever. But the idea behind it is that they wanted to, quote unquote, make a spiritual successor to the line of tactics games developed by Yasumi Matsuno, who was the creator of Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre and Ogre Battle games. And so it's funny because when you read that tagline, you think, oh man, this is a game that's made by Matsuno. This is going to be really good. But they neglect to mention that he's not working on the game. He didn't develop anything for this game. They're making a game that basically wants to be like the ones he's developed. But it's very much like that Kickstarter is being fashioned as like, this is a game that he's making or that he's worked on or that he's thought about.
Would you call that a bait and switch, you think?
I think so, yeah.
Even though they never explicitly say what game they're talking about?
Yeah. Well, and even though they say like they don't actually say that he's working on it. It's like the way that they phrase it is very like ambiguous to the point where it's like you would think that this is a game from him, but it's not. You know, it's a game in the style of games that he makes.
It's just a little, yeah.
It's almost
sounds
like
a little
false
shady,
advertising. Yeah. But, I mean, I don't know how that game's going to turn out because I think they're still developing it. They haven't really shown anything for it, even though they just put out, like, a message just recently, I think, like, last month, saying, like, hey, we're going to start working on this game now. So,
after how long?
I feel like it got kickstarted last year, so I have no idea.
Well, good luck with that. See, I guess speaking of like spiritual successors, one of the things I wanted to ask here on the podcast was if Mighty No.9 tried so hard, they put so much money into trying to make a spiritual successor for Mega Man, even including even bringing back the original creator with his own studio, his own team to make the game that he's reportedly wanted to make,
right?
And having that still fail, what else can you do?
I know,
like if you do all that and it didn't work out, what is missing exactly? How do you make a spiritual successor to Mega Man?
Well, I think the key word in that phrase spiritual successor is spirit. First of all, I feel like that looking at Mighty No.9, that's the big thing it lacks. It lacks the actual spirit of those games.
Well, what is the spirit?
Well, I mean, so you look at a game like I think Mighty No.9 takes most of its cues from the Mega Man X series. And if you go back and look at those games, they were compared to the original Mega Man games, they were like first of all like flashy.
Yeah.
They were very pretty. They're way more stylized. Like you look at the levels themselves and just like the backgrounds, the enemies, and even just like everything even outside of like your character Mega Man. Like if you look around the level, there's so much to look at. It's so pretty and so well done. And I mean, this was a game that was made for the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
And you look at I feel like that game looks better than Mighty No.9, which is like how many generations of consoles have come and gone in that amount of time? How much more power are you working with on like the PS4 and Xbox One compared to the Super Nintendo? And I mean, yeah, first of all, it's like, yeah, I mean, the style alone is what Mighty No.9 is lacking. It's lacking a sense of style, its own sense of style.
Because it tries so hard to recapture what Mega Man X was, including taking so many hints from the character designs. If you kind of like copy paste that, it loses its identity pretty much. It doesn't have its own.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like it needs to carve its own niche in that genre of like run and gun platformers, It's all well and good to copy the gameplay style itself and try to introduce new things. Like honestly, I think the enemy absorption and the dash mechanics actually are pretty cool and they're pretty original.
That's probably the only thing I enjoyed in that game. It was the only thing that felt actually satisfying. Yeah,
and I think that might have been the problem, is that they spent so much time developing the gameplay itself that they didn't put enough time into really crafting this game into crafting like the world around the gameplay, you know? And a lot of times I feel like that's what's lacking in these types of games.
Especially when indie games.
Yeah, exactly.
Of all games, those are the ones that need that sense of style the most.
Exactly.
Because the core mechanics can be very similar to another game, but if it feels different and it just puts you in a different place than those other games.
Exactly. And I think to some of the games that have been really popular in recent months and years that are, they don't necessarily do that much different with the genre. Like, for example, even Stardew Valley. Like Stardew Valley, you said it yourself on the podcast.
It is basically Harvest Moon, but it's a good Harvest Moon.
Exactly. And it has its own sense of style and it has its own unique design. And that's what it does well, in addition to being a Harvest Moon clone. It carves its own niche by being like its own world and its own kind of its own game.
Yeah.
And I think the same could be said for Undertale in particular, which is, it's an RPG that's based on like old school RPGs like Earthbound in particular, but it's got so much like character and it's got so much flavor and it's got so much lore to it on its own, even for being such a short game, that it stands out above a lot of other like mediocre Earthbound clones.
Yeah, definitely. That also reminds me of, just a quick aside, also reminds me of another game that I saw during E3 at the Media Indie Exchange for all those little indie games. It was one called Knuckle Sandwich.
Knuckle Sandwich?
And I was watching some guy play it. I wasn't sure exactly what was going on at first, but it was just a guy walking to a room. He had a spotlight on him all of a sudden, and this guy gave him this wheel to spin and see like what kind of job he would do. And I didn't know at first that it was an RPG.
Oh.
I was like, what the heck is this game? Because it made him do like, oh, you're going to be a dancer, so let's play like this DDR style game. And like, you either can do that, and I guess that's where you first start off with like your class or whatever, or something like that.
Okay.
But just like Undertale, it was very similar in the style of gameplay. Like as he went on with it.
Yeah.
It looks a lot like Earthbound actually.
Right.
And I don't know, it didn't really look like it at first, and I think that's why I think it's special in that it has this sense of style that you're not exactly sure what it is, and that's what can kind of captivate your, what can captivate you, what can capture your attention at first.
Definitely. And it's like, especially if you're not really familiar too with like, if you're not into Mega Man games or if you're not familiar with that, like in terms of like with Mighty No. 9, you just look at the style of the game itself, like the art for it. You look at the way that everything is rendered, and because it looks so bland and lifeless, it really is not attractive. It's like it doesn't look like a game that people would really want to go out and buy, and that's part of the problem with it too. And that's part of the problem with trying to create a spiritual successor, is that also, just like with the pedigree of the creators themselves. Oftentimes when you're building something as a spiritual successor to especially a game that's like a really big classic like Mega Man X or like the original Mega Man games, that creates that standard. People are expecting these games to be that good, to be like really solid in terms of the gameplay, really solid in terms of the style, the art, the animation.
Yes, and it's going to be really weird for the people who want that to be a good game, because you want it to be as good as Mega Man X, but you don't want it to be Mega Man X.
Right.
You don't want it to be a clone. You want it to be different than you want. It's just a really complicated process of trying to recreate those games.
Yeah.
Or recreate what was fun about them.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. It's like Mega Man X in particular had all that style. It had the flair, but it also had those smart gameplay mechanics. Like it tweaked the Mega Man formula enough that it was its own game series. It became its own series. You would be hard pressed to like really kind of say that Mega Man X is the exact same as the first Mega Man, because it does
not
things
even close.
Yeah,
no,
it does so many smart things and so many more like upgraded things. Like I feel like there's even just the dash mechanic alone like changed a lot. In terms of like how they were forced to design the levels and design the bosses and everything. And that's the thing with Mighty No. 9 too, is it's like the level design in particular. It's like I hear that you could play the levels in pretty much any order, but for the most part, it's not like Mega Man X where there was like an optimal path to go through. Like you should beat this boss first because you get his ability, which is weak, which the other boss is weak to, and so on and so on. From what I understand, like you could go through Mighty No. 9 just using your original blaster.
Yeah, and you can go in any order you want. It doesn't.
Yeah,
it doesn't
just
make a difference,
right? Which and that takes away a lot of like what made Mega Man X fun, and it it was fun trying to like beat these bosses too with like your puny little buster, which wouldn't do as much damage. Or you can go the optimal route and get like the power-ups that would kill the bosses in like 3 hits.
Yeah.
You know? But that was what was fun about it too, is figuring that out. In Mighty Number 9, you take that away, you know? So that's another thing that it doesn't do that its predecessor does. So if you're looking purely at like, you know, what's lacking in Mighty Number 9, that it, you know, it just lacks so much, you know? It's like there's so much missing from the formula. It tries to do the one thing right by having the good gameplay, and you know, it's got okay gameplay. But when you're missing everything else,
personality.
Yeah, there's no personality. When you're missing everything else, that's why it's not. I feel like that's why it's not so good, and that's why it hasn't been received very well.
Yeah. Can I plug a game real quick?
Go right ahead.
When you were talking about style, especially, and how much, if you're trying to make a spiritual successor to a certain game, you want to make sure the one that you're making has its own identity as well.
Yeah.
I will say one of the greatest examples of this is Cuphead. Once again, I will plug this game forever. If you were to, like, I played at E3, and if you were to just jump right into it without ever knowing what it was, you'll think it'll feel a lot like Contra.
Okay.
Because that's basically what it is.
Kind of like a run and gun shooter.
It's a run and gun shooter. It focuses on the big boss fights, and now they have like certain like platforming sections, but it's mostly just shooting.
Yeah.
And you die in 1 or 2 hits still, and it's really, really hard, just like Contra was. And so I think that game, that alone shows how much the design of the game can change your perspective on it, because you don't really go into it thinking that, oh, this is just another Contra clone. No, this is its own thing.
Yeah.
The animation is completely different, and it's unique.
Definitely.
And that's why I love it. And that's why I can't wait for that to come out. And that didn't have a Kickstarter.
Right.
You look at that thing, and they spent years upon years of making this like tedious hand-drawn 2D animation, but they didn't ever take a dime from Kickstarter. They just got Microsoft money. But still, they didn't have any like constraints about or have as many constraints about, you know, a release date or having to fulfill all these rewards or anything like that. They just made the game that they wanted to make. And I applaud them for that.
This podcast is in no way sponsored by the developers of Cuphead or Microsoft or any of these other studios that we've been talking about. Just thought I'd mention that.
All right, let's go to our final round.
Yeah, so we wanted to take some time. Like, I know it's a little bit earlier than we usually do, but we wanted to take some time, like this final round, to talk about some of the Kickstarter games that we have funded and where they're at. Have they been finished? Are they still in development? What's going on with them?
What the hell is going on with them?
Yeah.
All right.
Joey, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. So I backed Mighty Number 9. No, we'll not talk about that anymore.
No, it's done. We already know.
Let's
You
see.
funded it.
Okay, so I think it was the very first game I ever backed on Kickstarter was Broken Age.
Oh, right. That was the Double Fine game?
The Double Fine Adventure, which you may recall actually broke records.
Right.
I think they got like $2 million.
Yeah. At the time, that was like, what, the highest funded Kickstarter
Yeah, it was
game,
the
right?
highest funded. I think it might have been the highest funded Kickstarter project at the time.
Nice.
Because this was back in what, like 20. I don't know.
It's like a 2012 or something like that?
Yeah, it was February of 2012.
Yeah, that was a while ago. I remember
This
reading
is
about
back
that.
when nobody really used Kickstarter a lot, and they raised what, $3.5 million.
Yeah.
Good God. And I remember that that was also another one of those games that they kept emailing me, and I kind of just like at some point I was like, okay, I kind of care about the game, but not enough to open the email.
Yeah, you would just like delete it, like you like skim through it and delete
I would
it,
mark
right?
it as read and then keep going.
There you go. Yeah.
It took a long ass time, but honestly, in the end, I think it was worth it. You know, to be honest, I played very little of the game when it was released, but from what I did see, it felt really promising.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was an adventure game, like at its core. They had a very unique style, and just the mechanic of jumping between two completely different stories that eventually would link together, that I haven't figured it out yet because I haven't played it. But yeah, it looked like a lot of effort was put into it.
Right.
It was one thing I will say is that it was split up into 2 parts, which I think people were disappointed at. And that happened because they kind of ran out of time. They couldn't make the entire game at once and release it. So they did kind of like, what game were we talking about? Oh, it was Shovel Knight, where you release like a little bit at a time.
Yeah, which at the very least, it's like they gave fans and backers something to play, in the meantime. Which honestly, I don't mind so much. I think that is not necessarily a bad thing, especially if you're running into the problems of like you don't have enough time to finish all of it. It's like to
as long as it's a good product,
exactly,
when you release it, that's okay. If it's like, can you imagine if they were like, oh, we couldn't finish Mighty Number 9 all the way, so here's like the first half of the game first, and then they release that.
Yeah. And it's like it's just as bad as it was with the full
I can't
release.
imagine what people would think. But yeah, Broken Age, that was my first one.
And that has been released, right?
Yeah, it's out. You can buy it on Steam for like, I think it's like $8 or something
there
like
you
that.
go.
And I love Double Fine games. They're really cool.
Yeah.
They're in San Francisco, so.
And you've been to their office.
I've been
right?
to their office.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Met Tim Schafer.
Tim Schafer. Yeah, you snuck a picture of him while he was sitting across from you.
Yes. Shh. Don't talk about that.
Sorry, Tim.
All right. Well, what do you got for us?
Well, I guess I'll talk about the first Kickstarter game that I ever funded, actually. It was in 2013, and it is a game called Cosmic Star Heroine. The developers of that are Zeboyd Games. If you're not familiar with them, they did the 3rd and 4th Penny Arcade RPGs, On the Precipice of Darkness. They also did a couple of like really nice old school RPGs called Cthulhu Saves the World. And
that sounds perfect for you.
Yeah, it is. It's awesome. It's an RPG modeled after like the old Dragon Quest kind of RPGs from the 8-bit and 16-bit eras.
Isn't Cthulhu like?
He's the main character.
No, the character of Cthulhu itself. Isn't it like? Was it in the public? Was it public? What is it? When you can just
public domain?
Yeah, public domain.
I mean, I guess.
I think it is.
Yeah, he might be.
Nobody owns Cthulhu.
Yeah, I think people can write about him, but I mean, he was originally created by H.P. Lovecraft. But I mean, man, Lovecraft, like, he was like a really old school writer from like the early 1900s.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure by now,
no copyrights.
No copyrights.
Do whatever
exist.
you want with them.
Yeah.
Go on.
But so Cosmic Star Heroine, this was like, after they worked on like the 2 Penny Arcade games, for Penny Arcade, they wanted to go out and like make their next big game, and they wanted to do a more ambitious project. Like they wanted to first of all create like a game that was, a brand new IP. They wanted to come out and make a game that was like sci-fi themed. Basically, the way they described the game as being kind of like in terms of the gameplay, it's in the vein of like, Suikoden and Chrono Trigger and those types of games, but with like Phantasy Stars kind of setting. Like they wanted to take like the sci-fi and fantasy settings and meld them together.
All right.
And it sounded like a really cool project.
It sounds
like a project. Cool. Yeah, it's like for somebody like me who loves RPGs,
loves sci-fi, loves everything about it. Yeah, it sounds like it's right up your alley.
Exactly.
What happened?
And so it was funded in 2013, and it took a longer bit of development. Like originally their estimate was to finish it by December of 2014, and it's actually not available yet. But they did have it at PlayStation Experience last fall when I went there, and I didn't get to play it myself because there was a long line, but I watched a lot of the gameplay videos. It looks really great. Like
that's good to hear.
For an old school RPG, it looks super awesome, and it is actually being released this summer. I think in July or August. So
that's super soon.
It's really quick. Yeah. So they actually sent out all the backer surveys a couple of months ago. So I'm gonna get my copy on PSN, which should work on my PS4, and it also gives me the PS Vita version as well. So
cool.
I'll have an RPG to like play on my Vita when I travel around. So that is the first Kickstarter game that I ever funded, and I'm happy to report that it is coming out this year.
It's actually being released,
and it looks amazing. I'm happy.
Speaking of old school RPGs, real quick, do you know about I Am Setsuna?
Yes, Squaresoft's RPG coming out.
I worked with a little bit of the footage.
Yeah, I'm excited for that too. That looks great. Also, it looks really good.
Like I'm surprised they actually decided to make something like that.
Exactly. I'm
nice.
Like finally Squaresoft gets their shit together and makes a good RPG in the year 2016.
All right. So I guess I'm up next.
Yep.
Okay. This game is another one that I backed a while ago. I can't even remember, but at the time it sounded like a good idea.
Right.
It's called Hover: Revolt of Gamers. Yeah,
Okay.
the title is pretty atrocious.
Yeah, it's a very weird, bland title.
Yeah. Okay. So this was a game that was maybe is still being made by this tiny development team in France, I think. Maybe only like about 6 people, and they wanted to make the game kind of like Mighty No.9, Ukulele, and even Shenmue 3. They wanted to make a game that recaptured the spirit of an older game, like
Right.
a spiritual successor, of course. In this case, it was Jet Set Radio,
Oh, okay.
and like we mentioned before about them getting older creators to come back to draw people in. One of the backer rewards was if they reach maybe about $50,000, they would get the original composer from Jet Set Radio to do the
okay.
soundtrack in the game.
Oh, actually, that's not a bad reward considering like Jet Set Radio. One of the big draws was its
Final round.
They were really trying to pull the nostalgia card to get people to come in and give
Definitely.
them money. So I backed it. I don't remember at what point they sent me a code for the beta. I think it was maybe 2014.
Oh, jeez, that was like a code for the beta.
Yeah,
That's a while
I think
ago.
so. I'm
Damn.
not, okay, well, it might have been 2015. My memory's fuzzy with this game.
Right.
But when it did come out, I played it and the beta was pretty bad.
Oh, really?
Like it was just buggy. It was empty. There was like nothing in the world. It just honestly, it was a beta, but
Yeah.
it still seemed really unfinished.
Like it didn't make you want to immediately play the
it
finished
didn't give
product.
me anything promising to look forward to.
Yeah. It's almost better that they probably didn't send you the beta.
I know, and
Yeah.
just waited for full release.
Yeesh.
So right now, actually, the game is out
Oh, it's out already.
on Steam in early access.
Oh,
So if you don't know what early access is, that's where indie games go to dump their game that they're not done with yet and have people buy it already.
yeah. So it's like they're trying to make a little bit more money on it while it's still being
Even though this
developed.
was Kickstarted,
Yeah.
they're still doing this.
Ugh. That's a little atrocious to me.
Like
just a
it
little
is,
bit.
honestly though, it is getting some positive reviews on Steam. But this goes back to the problem of when the game is even going to be released.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, Steam early access can usually be a cop out for companies that don't know when they're going to release a game.
Right.
Like you just send it to early access and you avoid the risk of releasing an unfinished game because you tell people right away, this is not finished yet. You can buy it right now and test it for us,
Yeah.
but we don't know when we're gonna be done with it.
Exactly. It's almost just as big of a gamble as like kickstarting something, but at least you have something to play, I guess.
Yeah,
Even as much of a buggy, unfinished mess as it might be.
yeah. I feel like it's sometimes frowned upon, but it
Do you think when it's finally done, if it's finally done, you'll play it?
maybe. I at this point I don't really care anymore.
Yeah. By then you might have even forgotten about it too. Like,
Again.
yeah.
Well,
You'll see
there
the
you go.
email and you'll just be like, "Yep, mark is read." Yeah. Well, the only other game I've only ever kickstarted 2 games. So the second one for me was from 2014. So about a year after Cosmic Star Heroine. It's a game called Omori, Omori, and it's actually the brainchild of an artist I follow who goes by Omocat. She does a lot of originally did a lot of fan art for games like Smash Brothers and Earthbound and Zelda, and in recent years she's kind of focused more on her own original art to do like clothing lines and everything that are very much anime and video game inspired.
Okay.
Which is pretty cool. Like they sell her clothes at in Japantown here in San Francisco. There's that store called the New People
Oh,
Building
yeah,
or
I
whatever.
know what you're talking about.
They sell her clothes there at that store in particular, which is really cool. So she's always had this idea to do this story called Omori, which it's really cool because a lot of it takes place in like a dreamscape. And she used to do like web comics for Omori and got the idea to do an RPG that's very much influenced by Earthbound in particular. Like the battle system is almost straight out of Earthbound.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like at the time, it was going to be a very small team, like, to develop this game. She, it's like herself doing all the artwork and the sprite work for it. And she got this guy, oh, I forgot what they call that kind of music. She got this artist to do the music for it. Like, it's a chiptune artist. He's a chiptune artist who performs under the name Slime Girls. And it's really cool music too. Like, the music is really great because they've released a lot of tracks for it so far. And yeah, there's a couple of other people that are working on the development team, but for the most part, they're basically just building this game in RPG Maker using like custom sprites and like custom
they're
programming.
selling this for money.
Yeah, pretty much. And the game has still not come out yet. It was originally estimated to come out in May 2015, so last year. And there was not a whole lot of news that was coming out after a while, and apparently it was because there was a new version of RPG Maker that was coming out that they wanted to switch over to, which apparently messed up with some of the development in the game. Like, some of the programming had to be redone from scratch because of the move to the new RPG Maker. But since then, they're really...
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's like, it was some kind of a mess, and I mostly ignored it, too. Like, I skimmed through the emails. I'm like, all right, well, whatever. I only paid like $5 for it anyway. But at the same time, it's just like, oh, man, it's like, it's been so long since I had heard anything about this game. And I think just in the last 2 months, like, OmoCat put out a message about, like, I'm still working on this game. It's still in development. We're working on, like an actual demo for the game that's going to be released this fall or this summer. And the idea is the game's supposed to come out towards the end of the year. But, it's another game that's like, all right, it's been in development for over 2 years and you haven't really seen very much from it.
Yeah.
But from what I have seen, like the trailer that they released for it a couple of months back, it looks good. Like, it's a very stylish RPG. The battle system is actually really cool. And I mean, it's got that Earthbound flavor to it, but it seems like they've kind of started to give it a little bit more of its own flair, and move away from like doing the traditional like turn-based battle system. They might make it a little bit more active.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. I'm glad to see them doing different things with it, and rather than just, like we talked about, kind of copy and paste a gameplay design.
I'm just mostly offended at the fact they decide making a game with
RPG
Maker and then selling it for money in a Kickstarter was a good idea.
Yeah. I'm sure that there are a lot of games like on Steam or something that kind of are the same way,
But still, like, to kickstart a game like that, that's just sneaky.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much money they actually made on that Kickstarter, but it was funded.
They made $5, all from Will.
Yep, $5 from me. But hey, apparently that gets me a copy of the game, and they apparently reached their stretch goal, which means that they're going to do a port of it on the 3DS and have it on the Nintendo store.
We'll see about that.
So we'll see.
So I'm assuming, since you said you only backed 2 games ever, I have the last one here.
Yeah, go right ahead, man.
So I'll close out with a success story. How
Oh,
about
yeah.
that? How about that for a change?
Yay! Success!
So another one of the games, and this is probably, out of all the things I backed, probably the most successful and probably the most inspiring. And it was for Skullgirls.
Oh, Skullgirls. Yes, I love that
Yes.
game.
And if you remember the history of what happened with their studio when they were making it, they actually ran into a lot of legal troubles with like Konami, and long story short, they ended up getting their funding cut off for the game.
Yeesh.
And it was delisted from like the online stores and nobody could buy it. And so they were kind of the studio, I forget their name. Sorry.
Lab Zero?
Lab Zero, yeah, there we go. Yeah, they kind of had their backs to the wall, and they decided to throw up this Indiegogo campaign to keep it alive. To
I
keep
remember
the game
that now,
alive.
yeah.
And the fact that this campaign was out of necessity, not out of something that, we want to make this new game that you used to love or whatever. No, this is something that they needed to survive.
Right.
There were, I think it was like maybe only a dozen people working there, but they would have all probably lost their jobs had this not been successful. And not only was it, this passion project that was more successful than anything else that I've seen at the time, they delivered on everything that they promised.
Yep.
When they took all the people's money, they told them that, okay, because we've made $800,000, we're gonna now release all these characters. We're gonna have all these votes for the DLC. They had votes.
Yeah.
The people backing could choose what characters they wanted to have in the game, which was incredible, I think.
Yeah. I have those characters too, and they're actually they're pretty awesome.
Yeah, and not only that, like, they gave them out for free.
Yep.
Even to people who didn't back the game.
People like me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have Indiegogo, so, you know. But yeah, that was super. I think that was super awesome for like people that did pick up like the original game too. Is that all of these characters that they put out, the DLC ones? I think they were free for at least the first 2 weeks if you didn't, even if you didn't back it. So it was like 2 weeks that they were available for free. So if you hopped on like right away, like when they were released, you got them for free.
Yeah, and that kind of got people to buy the game, even though they didn't participate in the campaign. They saw that, oh, this game I remember reading about, they're now releasing all this DLC for free.
Yeah.
And I see them constantly offering it like free weekends too.
Yeah.
Like, oh, try the game out, see if you like it, you know.
Yeah, and actually Skullgirls, I mean, a lot the nice success about Skullgirls too, to even add on top of that, is like how much the community has like helped to foster that game in terms of the competitive scene.
Yeah.
Like in the fighting game community, like they have really kind of started to push Skullgirls as being like a really huge game. I mean, this game started out as, I feel like when it came out, it was like it was made as a labor of love to fighting gamers too. Like it was a lot of people that had, you know, that had their hands in the FGC. Like they worked on this game.
Like the guy, the creator of the game, Mike Z, he was like this, he's been in the fighting game community for years and maybe like 10, 15 plus years.
Yeah.
I used to download his videos for like Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Like I remember him from all that long time ago, and now that he's actually making his own game, something that he wants to make, it's pretty amazing.
It is, yeah. And the game itself has really come a long way too. I feel like they've really honed the mechanics of it, and they've really found it. I love the style of it. The game has such a great style and such a great flair to it. It's amazing, and man, I love Skullgirls, and I'm so happy, to be honest. I'm really happy to see how much it's being supported by the fans in like these tournaments and everything too. So I'm actually super hyped to see it. I think it's going to be at EVO. I hope.
As a side tournament. Definitely.
It's always a side tournament. It's gotten, I think, main stage at a couple of bigger tournaments too. So I'm hoping that like one of these days soon it's going to be at EVO as a main stage game. That would be super awesome to see.
We'll see.
I would be really hyped for that.
All right. I think that's it. So we are just out of time now.
Yeah. So once again, thank you guys for listening to this episode of RetroActive, and for myself here and for my partner Joey, you know, we'll see you next week. Hey guys, as always, thanks so much for listening into this episode of RetroActive. If you enjoyed the podcast and want to hear more, please don't hesitate to subscribe to us on iTunes and YouTube. And while you're at it, hit that like button, if there is one. And leave us a comment to let us know your thoughts. We promise we'll read it. You can check us out at Facebook under RetroActive Podcast, Instagram as retro.active, or Twitter as _retroactive. Yeah, we really couldn't get the same name on any of those things, but, you know, oh well. We'll catch you next week.
Will sucks.
Boo.